Piers Morgan just can't stop himself inciting against the Palestinian people. Through his dehumanisation of Palestinians, his racist incitements and mindless conflation of Israelis and Jews, Morgan continues to add fuel to the fire of genocide. By Jonathan Cook. I already had a very low opinion of Piers Morgan, but I was stunned by his display of racist ignorance last night while interviewing the Palestinian journalist Ahmed Al-Anouk, who showed great fortitude and dignity throughout. Outrageously, Morgan berates Al-Anouk, whose entire family in Gaza was wiped out by Israel early on in its genocide, for insisting that there is a distinction, recognised by Palestinians, if not Israel, between Israelis and Jews. Al-Anouk points out that Palestinians have a problem, not with Jews, but with Israelis for violently occupying and colonising their land for many decades, and for putting Palestinians in Gaza under a brutal 17-year siege that has now been transformed into a campaign of starvation. The exchange has to be heard to be believed. It starts at 59 minutes and 50 seconds on this link. How can you say you have no problem with the Jews, but you have a problem with the Israelis, given that most Israelis are Jewish? Morgan asks incredulously. Al-Anouk's reply is, I am simply astonished that you can't make the difference between Jews and the Israelis. Piers. Morgan. I am astonished you would try to draw a distinction. Morgan then insists that Hamas is a death cult determined to kill all Israelis because they are Jews. Al-Anouk. It's dangerous when you make this out to be a religious war. Morgan. It's dangerous when you try to pretend that they're not after killing Jews. You don't think Hamas target Jews because they're Jews. Al-Anouk. Of course not. Morgan. It's nonsense. Al-Anouk. I am surprised that you are saying this, Piers. Genuinely, I am surprised. Morgan, again incredulous. You're surprised that I think Hamas target Jewish people. Al-Anouk. Of course. Morgan. I find that staggering, Ahmed. It's obviously a ridiculous thing to say. Al-Anouk. Why? Morgan. Because obviously they target and murder as many Jewish people as they can get their hands on, and you say it's because they're Israelis, not Jewish. Al-Anouk. Because they are occupiers, because they occupied our country. Morgan. And because they're Jewish. Al-Anouk. No, because they occupied our country and colonised our country, because they came to our country and kicked us out in 1948, and they killed thousands of Palestinians, including my grandparents. Morgan. But you know why Israel was set up after World War II, because Jewish people were the victims of an appalling Holocaust by Hitler and the Nazis, where 6 million of them were exterminated purely for their ethnicity and for being Jewish, so the Jewish people were given the state of Israel. Al-Anouk. My country. Morgan. I understand that argument, but it wasn't Israelis given that land, it was the Jewish people. Al-Anouk. Who are you to give the Jewish people my country? You can learn much from this exchange about why the Western political and media class have been so comfortable watching Israel commit a genocide against Palestinians. Journalists like Morgan are so immersed in their own confected narrative bubble, they have so bought into the dehumanisation of Palestinians that Israel's brutal illegal occupation, colonisation and apartheid system is invisible to them, and therefore any resistance from Palestinians to their oppression by Israel can only be understood as an attack on Jews, as evidence of anti-Semitism. Illustrating the trap faced by Palestinians, Al-Anouk's very attempts to make a clear distinction between Israelis and Jews is turned against him, becoming evidence for Morgan of his anti-Semitism. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Morgan introduced Al-Anouk by pointing out that the Palestinian journalist had written on X/Twitter last year after his family in Gaza were killed, I blame you, Piers Morgan, for their murder and the murder of all innocent people in Gaza. Morgan's subsequent exchange with Al-Anouk proved precisely his point. Through dehumanisation of Palestinians, through racist incitement, through mindless anti-Semitic conflations of Israeli and Jewish, Morgan continues to add fuel to the fire. He continues to give succour to the genocide apologist 20 months into that genocide. His sudden, extremely belated reversal over the past 2 weeks about whether Israel has overstepped the rules of war, conveniently coinciding with a similar reassessment in European capitals, should be welcomed. It may finally help to turn the tide on Israel's genocidal campaign in Gaza. But let us not forget that, had Morgan and others decided to turn that tide sooner, many thousands of Palestinian children might still be alive.